Hello, I'm Master number 8. The voice was soft, but the room was sterile and white. I was lying on a hospital bed, hooked up to a dozen machines. Bandages covered every inch of my body. I was a rank 8 half-step martial god, one of the strongest people on earth. Yet here I was, broken. My friend, the man standing by my bed, sighed. You really did it, Wang Xian. You took on a whole swarm of beasts just to save a few dozen civilians. Was your life really worth that? I forced a smile, ignoring the tubes in my throat. It's not about worth. I started my martial arts journey too late. My body was already at its limit. Rank 8 was the end of the road for me anyway. Besides, I'm a martial artist. Protecting the people is my job. The heart monitor beeped weakly. My friend didn't buy it. Cut the crap. I know you. You did it because Chen Yuding was in that crowd, didn't you? You've met thousands of beautiful women over the years. You spend your free time scrolling through videos of pretty girls online. Why are you still obsessed with her? I only watch those videos to look for disguised monsters, I joked weakly. For the safety of the public. Get lost, he snapped, though his eyes were sad. I went quiet. My mind drifted back to high school. When I first tested my martial arts potential, my innate vitality was 0.1. I was dead last in my class. For a teenager dreaming of becoming a hero, that was a death sentence. I spent 2 years as a total loser, a bottom-tier student with no future. Then, at the start of my senior year, I found a letter in my desk. Inside was a drawing. It showed a future version of me, wearing the cloak of a martial god and wielding a divine weapon. It was a naive, childish bit of encouragement, but it was the first light I'd seen in a long time. It gave me the confidence to work harder than anyone else. I fought through college, survived the alien battlefields, and eventually became a legend. I always believed that drawing came from the class beauty, Chen Yuding. She was the only one in class who could draw like that. The letter, my friend asked, his expression shifting. Wait, did you get that letter after a PE class? I nodded. I remembered it perfectly. He looked at me with pure pity. You've got it all wrong. That day, I went back to the classroom to grab a drink. I saw a girl from another class, Yi Minghua, sneaking into our room. She's the one who put that paper in your desk. My heart skipped a beat. What? Yi Minghua died in a disaster a few days later, he continued. I always thought you were obsessed with Chen Yuding because you'd moved on. I started shaking. My world was crumbling. Impossible. I asked Chen Yuding later, and she said she sent it. Why would she lie? Why would Yi Minghua? The heart monitor flatlined. The long, high-pitched tone echoed in the white room as my vision went dark. Xiao Xian, wake up. Someone was shaking me. Hard. My head was spinning. I was supposed to be dead. Why wouldn't they let me sleep? Dad, stop shaking him. Let me try, a voice shouted. Xiao Xian, look, a beautiful girl in a black silk skirt. I snapped my eyes open. I wasn't in a hospital. I was in a martial arts gym. I saw wooden training racks, plum blossom poles, and a giant character for martial painted on the wall. 2 faces appeared in front of me. Memories flooded back. Uncle San, you're not blind. I blurted out. I looked at the younger man next to him. Second brother? Your legs, you can walk. They both stared at me like I'd lost my mind. Then, they both punched me in the head at the same time. Ow. Okay. I'm awake. I yelled, rubbing my temples. I started laughing like an idiot. This had to be a dream. My uncle, Wang Dabiao, was like a father to me. He raised me after my parents died. His son, Wang Yan, was my brother in every way that mattered. In my past life, Uncle San was blinded by enemies, and second brother had his legs broken by some corrupt, powerful family. By the time I became strong enough to help them, it was already too late. Take a break, kid, Uncle Sen said, patting my shoulder. I don't know why you've been training so hard lately. But listen, if you don't build your foundation in your first 2 years of high school, trying to catch up in senior year is almost impossible. I smiled and didn't argue. I pulled a phone out of my pocket and checked the date. December 1st, 2024. I had been reborn. I would never forget this day. Today, our city would be hit by an S-class beast attack, the Wasp King. Thousands would die. In my previous life, I survived because I stayed at the gym to train. But Yi Minghua didn't. She was on Tianfu Street when the shockwave hit. She was torn to pieces. Back then, I barely knew her. She was a star student, way out of my league. I only ever watched her from a distance. After I got that drawing, I put all my focus on Chen Yuding. But if the drawing really came from Yi Minghua, I took a deep breath. I had to save her. Xiao Xian, I've got it all set up, second brother said, grabbing my arm and pulling me toward the back of the gym. Room 18. Follow me. Wait, I have somewhere to be. I protested. Nothing is more important than this. We have a new girl today. You should be the first to try her out. Can you please not make it sound so sketchy? I sighed. Our gym had a massage clinic. Some were for recovery, using martial energy to clear the blood vessels. Those cost a fortune. Others were just for relaxation. Second brother shoved me into a dim room and pushed me onto a soft bed. Enjoy yourself, little brother. He winked and closed the door. The soft lighting made me feel drowsy, but I shook it off. I had to get to Tianfu Street. I had to find Yi Minghua. I started to get up when the door clicked open. A faint, elegant scent filled the room. It was cold and sweet, like a mountain flower. Then a voice spoke. It was soft, clear, and sounded like it belonged to an angel. Hello, I'm your masseuse. I froze. I knew that voice. It was her. I looked at the girl standing in front of me, and my jaw nearly hit the floor. This was technician number 8. She was wearing the standard uniform, a deep purple short-sleeved work shirt and loose trousers. Her hair was pulled back into a high ponytail, and a thick mask covered half her face. To top it off, she wore heavy, black-rimmed glasses that obscured her eyes. In the dim light of the massage room, with her head bowed low, she was almost unrecognizable. I'd bet anything that even her own classmates wouldn't know who she was. They'd never guessed that this timid girl was actually the legendary Ice Queen of our school, Yi Minghua. But I knew. The second she spoke, I recognized her. In my past life, I wouldn't have been able to tell. At school, Yi Minghua barely spoke a word to anyone. Here, her voice was even lower, tight with nerves and a hint of fear. But I wasn't just a high school kid anymore. I was a man who had once reached the level of a half-step martial god. Even though I had been reborn into my younger, weaker body, my senses hadn't faded. To give you an idea, a female mosquito vibrates its wings at about 450 hertz, while a male is around 600. I could tell them apart just by listening. Compared to the complex roars of the mutated beasts I used to fight, identifying a human voice was child's play. I watched her closely. I noted the shape of her eyes, the width of her brow, the texture of her hair, and her perfect proportions. When she looked at me, I caught a flash of pure panic in her eyes before she looked away. It was her. 100%. Yi Minghua walked to the side of the bed. She pretended to look around the room, but I could see her scanning me out of the corner of her eye, trying to confirm my identity. Suddenly, she stiffened. I'm sorry. I think I have the wrong room, she whispered. She set down a bottle of massage oil and turned to bolt for the door. My heart hammered. Seeing her react like that confirmed my suspicion. She was definitely the one who had sent me that letter. At school, everyone knew her, but she didn't bother knowing anyone else. We weren't even in the same class. If she was this desperate to leave, it meant she knew exactly who I was. But why? We'd had zero interaction in high school. She reached the door and let out a tiny, audible sigh of relief. Just as her hand touched the handle, I spoke up, my voice trailing with a playful edge. Nice disguise, campus goddess Yi. My words hit her like a physical blow. She froze in place, paralyzed. Her body went so rigid that her loose trousers tightened, outlining her curves perfectly. I took a moment to appreciate the view before I stood up calmly. I walked over, reached past her, and pushed the door shut. Click. I turned the lock. I turned back to face her. The calm she was trying to project shattered. Her beautiful eyes were wide with terror. When she heard the lock click, she actually shivered. Panic was quickly turning into pure despair. I glanced at the clock on the wall and stretched my arms over my head. Then, I pointed toward the massage bed. Do I really need to say it? I asked. Yi Minghua stayed silent. She didn't move. She was staging a silent protest. I didn't feel like arguing, so I took a heavy step toward her. I'm 6'1" and built like a tank. The sheer pressure of my presence felt like a predator cornering its prey. Yi Minghua, barely 5'7", looked like a startled rabbit. She scrambled back several steps until she hit the edge of the bed. With nowhere left to run, she pressed her back against the wall and crossed her arms over her chest. Her eyes were rimmed with red, looking like she'd rather die than submit. I rolled my eyes. What's with the look? You're here to give me a massage, not the other way around. Where's your professional ethics? She blinked, stunned. Realization dawned on her, and she lunged for the bottle of massage oil like it was a lifeline. If it was just a massage, she could handle that. As she fumbled with the cap, I decided to play dumb. How long have you been doing this? It's my first time, she mumbled, keeping her head down. I already knew that. This had to be a part-time gig. My uncle's gym hired part-time masseuses and paid them well, but because the place was so remote, not many people applied. She probably picked this spot because she thought no one would recognize her. In my previous life, I rarely came to the gym this early in the year, so I never would have known. I'm still wearing my clothes, I said, spreading my arms out like a boss. What are you waiting for? Help me out here. That's not part of the service, she said, her voice trembling but firm. Maybe not, I yawned. But with this attitude, I might have to tell the manager. I'll do it, she interrupted. Her hands were shaking as she gripped the hem of my shirt. She looked humiliated, but after a few seconds of internal struggle, she pulled my shirt off. The pants too, I added. She gritted her teeth and knelt down. She closed her eyes tight, turned her head away, and slowly pulled my trousers down until I was just in my boxers. I climbed onto the bed and closed my eyes. Apply the oil exactly where I tell you, I commanded. The front of the outer ankle, just below the bone. I felt a sudden chill as the oil touched my skin. I glanced at the unlabeled bottle. This stuff was Tianbao nutrition cream. It was packed with world energy and cost at least 5,000 yuan a bottle. It was high-grade stuff meant for serious martial artists to strengthen their bones and muscles. A normal massage didn't come with this. Uncle must have set this aside specifically for me. It was good stuff, but she wasn't using enough force. Use some muscle, I said lazily. Give me about 70% power. The moment she pressed down, I could feel her potential. This girl had a vitality level of at least 0.5. Her talent was top tier, and she could probably put out 400 pounds of force. She was more than capable. Stop, I barked. I said use force, not pinch me. If you don't have the technique, at least control your power. You know the basic fitness punch, right? Use the third style, the Phoenix Eye Strike. Focus the pressure on your index finger knuckle. Keep your core tight and twist your wrist. She was a quick learner. With just a few pointers, she found the rhythm. Good. Next spot. Outer calf, 7 inches above the ankle. Use 50% power. 8th style of the fitness punch, the galloping leap. Keep your hips steady or the elbow pressure won't reach. I kept directing her for about an hour. By the end, Manhwa was gasping for air. Beads of sweat dotted her forehead. She clearly didn't understand why giving a massage was more exhausting than practicing her martial arts routines. Finally, she couldn't take it anymore. Her hands were shaking so hard, she had to collapse into a nearby chair. She pulled off her mask and glasses, revealing a face that was flushed deep red. The coldness was gone, replaced by a raw, exhausted beauty. Sweat slid down her neck, disappearing into the curves of her uniform. I opened my eyes and rolled over. When I saw her sitting there, I froze for a second. Asterisk damn. Since when was she that well endowed? Asterisk. Time's up, she panted, wiping sweat from her brow. She looked like a massive weight had been lifted off her shoulders. What's the rush? I said calmly, checking the clock. I want to add another hour. There was a long silence. Manhwa stood up and backed away, her expression flat. I can't, she said, her voice trembling. My hands. I have no strength left. I shook my head, my eyes scanning Manhwa from head to toe. Eventually, my gaze settled on her long, slender legs. I let out a small laugh. If your hands are out of strength, you still have feet, don't you? She froze. She clearly didn't process what I meant at first. Her eyes followed mine down to her own toes. When the realization hit, her face turned a shade of red so deep it looked like someone had splashed wet paint on her skin. She shook her head violently. Her voice came out as cold and hard as a block of ice in midwinter. No way. I understood. In the old days, a woman's feet were private, reserved only for those closest to her. Even in modern times, it wasn't exactly a standard request. I'd suggest you think about it, I said, leaning back on the bed with my hands behind my head. My uncle owns this place. Even if you're just part-time, your ID and student info are all on file. You're the school beauty, Yi Minghua. You wouldn't want the whole school to find out tomorrow that you're working here as a... I didn't even have to finish the sentence. The threat hit her like a physical blow. Her composure shattered. Wait, she whispered. She struggled with herself for a long moment. Finally, she bent down and slowly rolled up her pant legs. Her calves were white as snow, smooth and flawless. A few faint blue veins traced paths down to her ankles. It was a sight so perfect it felt like looking at a piece of art. Move closer, I instructed. Put them on the bed. Let me see. She stared at me like I was a total creep. Don't look at me like that, I said, keeping my face perfectly serious. I need to check for any athlete's foot or something. I don't want you catching anything or passing it to me. It's just common sense. She stayed silent for a few seconds before finally lifting her feet onto the bed. I leaned in close, frowning as I inspected them from every angle. I looked like a doctor performing a serious exam. Then, I used my hand to fan the air near them. Before she could pull away in embarrassment, I spoke up. A bit sour, Yi. Go wash them. She didn't hesitate. She scrambled off the bed and bolted into the bathroom like she was escaping a crime scene. I let out a soft whistle once she was gone. My expression turned serious. I hadn't been joking about the inspection. I had seen 5 faint spiritual patterns on the soles of her feet. In the year 2040, people discovered that if someone awakened a high-level martial talent, these patterns appeared. It was the result of natural energy gathering around latent power. Based on how clear hers were, she had at least a king-grade talent. I sighed. Why her? In the future, she was guaranteed to become a great grandmaster of the 7th realm. Since 1912, humanity had been divided. Those with talent practiced new martial arts. They unlocked genetic locks and used supernatural techniques. They were the darlings of the era. People like me, who had no talent, had to stick to old martial arts. We had to train in the freezing cold and the blistering heat, pushing our bodies to the breaking point just to survive. In my past life, I was the only old martial arts practitioner to ever reach the 8th realm. Everyone else was new martial. It wasn't that old martial arts were weak, they were just too hard. Nobody wanted to suffer that much. Even the massage Yi Minghua was giving me was actually an old martial technique called pulse opening. It involved hitting specific acupoints with hundreds of pounds of pressure to force energy through the meridians. It was incredibly painful. Most people would scream in agony, yet I was lying here directing her like it was a spa day. By now, old martial arts were being phased out. Most students awakened some kind of talent and took the easy path. But Yi Minghua, if she awakened that king-grade talent in her senior year, she would shock the entire city. A talent like that appeared in less than 1 in a million people. I never realized she was hiding that kind of potential before she died in my previous life. A few minutes later, she walked back out. She had regained her icy composure. She was probably telling herself what my sister told all the trainees. *, don't be afraid. If they don't get handsy, just treat them like a piece of pork you're tenderizing. *. As she walked over, I held up a hand to stop her. I reached into the bedside drawer, rummaged around, and pulled something out with a smirk. I tossed it onto the bed. Put these on. She looked down. Her calm shattered instantly. Her eyes filled with pure embarrassment. It was a brand new package of black silk stockings. She glared at me, her eyes wide with fury. Stop looking at me like I'm a pervert, I said righteously. I'm telling you to wear them for your own protection. Didn't you say men and women shouldn't have direct contact? Besides, do you really want to touch a stranger's skin with your bare feet? You might be okay with it, but I'm a germaphobe. She blinked, her mouth hanging open slightly. She actually stopped to think about it. I suppose that makes sense, she whispered. She took the stockings and disappeared back into the bathroom. When she stepped out again, the sight was breathtaking. Her long legs were wrapped in sheer black silk. It was a top-tier view. The only tragedy was that she wasn't wearing a skirt to match. I flipped back onto my stomach, exposing my back. Same spots as before, I told her. But this time, use the pillar stance. You know it. Not very good at it, she admitted. I wasn't surprised. The pillar stance was a foundation of old martial arts. Even though the old ways were dying, schools still taught the basics for health and fitness. Most students just went through the motions, but today, She was going to learn how to use it for real. The wave of new martial arts was crashing down on everyone, but most students didn't give a damn about the pillar stance. They figured once they awakened their martial talent and gained supernatural power, the basics wouldn't matter. It was the same story with the standard fitness boxing we learned. They were wrong. These techniques weren't just filler. The government had spent decades refining them from the old martial arts systems. In my past life, I had practiced the pillar stance every single day until I reached the 7th realm and became a grandmaster. I'd spent years studying it with other experts, refining it until I discovered something revolutionary. If you combine the stance with a specific breathing pattern, it could supercharge a martial artist's foundation. Back then, it was a breakthrough. It took decades of testing on alien battlefields before the 5 martial arts committees officially named it the Manhwa breathing method. It was the ultimate bridge between the old ways and new genetic science. The tragedy was, I died before I could see it fully implemented. Stand straight. Stay steady. Align yourself. I barked. There are 3 rules to the pillar stance, and you're failing every single one of them. I glanced back at Mingwa. I thought you were a top student. You little flower. Your stance is a mess. You can't even stand steady. How are you supposed to massage me with your feet like that? She didn't argue. She didn't even look angry. She just looked ashamed. To be fair, she was actually doing better than most students at our school, but to me, she was full of flaws. Drop your shoulders an inch. If your hands feel weak, press them against your sides. Open your feet wider. More. I kept nitpicking. Soon, wrapped in those black silk stockings, Mingwa locked into the pose. Her body tensed like a drawn bowstring. Her loose pants tightened instantly, tracing the perfect curves of her legs. Lift one foot, I ordered after a few minutes. She tried. Her lower body held, but her upper body wobbled. Her balance was gone. From my angle on the bed, I saw her chest start to bounce slightly as she struggled to stay upright. You need work, I said, watching her closely. If there was a level for this, you'd be at 1%. Total amateur. Less than 10 minutes in, her legs started to tremble. Her head dropped, her ears turning bright red from the criticism. Fine. Listen up, I said. Breathe the way I tell you. Focus the mind, move the breath. Use the breath to drive the body. Power comes from the 4 C's, and the center is empty. The Manhwa breathing method was only about 100 words long. It sounded simple, but without someone to explain the nuances, it was impossible to master. I broke it down word by word. She was smart. Within half an hour, she was starting to get the hang of it. The change was visible. Her stance became rock solid. Her energy shifted. Good enough, I said, yawning. I've spent enough time teaching. Start the massage. She was incredibly serious about it. It was a strange sight. This cold, elegant girl, wearing black stockings, focused intensely on massaging a man's back with her feet. It was a bizarre mix of pure and provocative. I couldn't help but wonder what that little green tea girl, Chen Yuding, would do in this situation. I checked the time. Seeing how hard Mingwa was working, a mischievous thought crossed my mind. As she shifted her weight to press down again, I subtly slid my body to the side. Her foot, slick with nutrient cream, missed its mark. Thump. She lost her balance completely and fell. Her backside landed right on my back. I felt a soft, bouncy impact that sent a jolt through my system. What are you doing? I demanded, spinning around to face her. She was flushed, her face a mask of panic. I told you this was a professional massage parlor. I snapped. What's this? Are you trying to seduce me? I'm not, she stammered, waving her hands frantically. Then get off me. Are you trying to take advantage of me? She scrambled up, her eyes welling with tears from the embarrassment. Time's up, she whispered, pulling her feet back. She looked like she was done. I watched her, and she seemed to sense my gaze. She reflexively covered her backside with her hands, shaking her head. She looked like she was ready to walk out and never come back. You're leaving just like that? I asked. She stopped. What else do you want? I sat up, dressed quickly, and pulled out a card. There's 30,000 in here. She froze. I don't want it. Don't be full of yourself. I'm not giving it to you. I laughed. I'm opening a membership. You come here every weekend. 1,000 per session. After 30 sessions, the money is yours. You'll have earned it. I won't. Think carefully. I interrupted, pulling up the school forum on my phone. "You little flower, you don't want your name trending on the front page tomorrow, do you?" She looked like her head was about to explode from frustration. "Of course," I added with a wicked grin, scanning her up and down. "If you want to earn the money faster through other ways, we can talk about that too. I'll do the massage," she blurted out. Clearly, the massage was the lesser of two evils. "Take this with you," I said, tossing the half-empty bottle of Tianbao nutrient cream at her. "It smells too strong. I don't like it." She frowned. She knew this stuff was expensive, even without a label. And it didn't smell too strong. It had a light, natural fragrance. "I don't need it," she said. "Your muscles are weak and your breath is short," I countered, pointing at her. "If you don't use it, you'll be all soft and shaky next time. You'll probably fall on me again. I'm giving it to you for my own sake." I walked toward the door. As I passed her, I tossed the bottle. She caught it with one hand. Her other hand balled into a tight fist. She couldn't find a single word to talk back. As I reached the exit, I sensed something. It was like a spider's sense. I spun around suddenly. She was behind me, throwing silent punches at my back in the air. "What? You want to hit me?" She jumped, nearly burying her face in her chest. And no. I almost burst out laughing. Everyone at school thought she was an ice queen, cold, distant, and untouchable. It turns out that was just a mask. Underneath it all, she was actually kind of a klutz. Her cold, untouchable act was the reason she had 0 friends and even fewer suitors at school. She was like a lonely crescent moon in a dark sky. I never expected to see her acting like a flustered klutz. Just then, my second brother appeared at the door. "Xiao Xian, that sweet little sister, Qin Yu Ting, is looking for you again." The name hit me like a physical blow. Memories, fragmented and messy, started flooding back. "Oh, wait a sec," I called out. I turned back to Yi Mingyu. "Go change into some training gear. Meet me outside in a bit." She gave a small grunt of agreement. Even if I hadn't told her to change, there was no way she wanted to be seen by our classmates in that outfit. I walked toward the center of the martial arts hall. "In a bit, I'll have Wang Xian open a private sparring package just for us," a beautiful girl with a bun in her hair said, giggling behind her hand. "We only have 2 months before the class splits. We need to practice hard if we want to get into the dance department next semester." This was Qin Yu Ting. She had bright eyes, white teeth, and a charming face. She was already wearing a tight-fitting training suit that showed off every curve, drawing the eyes of every man in the room. Even the guys sparring on the mats lost their focus for a second. Standing next to her were 2 other girls in our blue and white school uniforms, looking a bit hesitant. "Yu Ting, isn't a private sparring package expensive?" one of them whispered. "I heard they charge by the hour." Qin Yu Ting looked completely confident. "As long as I ask, Wang Xian will agree. His third uncle owns this place. Besides, we can use any of the equipment here for free." "Whoa, Tingjia," the girls whispered, exchanging looks. "Are you two dating?" "Don't talk nonsense," Qin Yu Ting said with a dismissive wave, though she had a smug look on her face. "We're just very close classmates." The 2 girls nodded, looking enlightened. "I knew it. With your status, coming to this rundown little gym is already giving Wang Xian a huge amount of face." They started looking around. "Well, we won't be shy then. It's small, but the equipment is actually pretty good. They even have a gravity room." One of them pointed at a rack. "Wait, extreme path cup crushing hand. Isn't that just a basic technique from the old martial arts school? Does anyone actually still practice this garbage?" "Who knows? Once we awaken our martial talents and get real skills, it'll be 100 times stronger than this junk." A few of the regular students nearby frowned at their words, but they didn't say anything. Most people who came here were those who hadn't awakened any special talents yet. I finally walked out into the main hall. "Wang Xian, come here and be my sparring partner," Qin Yu Ting called out the moment she saw me. She gave me a shallow, patronizing smile, like she was granting me a favor. I paused, looking at her, and a strange smile touched my lips. In my past life, because of a single drawing she gave me, I had spent my entire high school and college years as her loyal licking dog. I did everything for her. Even when I started to wake up in college, I only graduated from being a dog to being a warm guy backup. I didn't truly give up until I found out she married into a wealthy family after graduation. After that, I had spent decades in the brutal meat grinder of the alien star battlefield. By the time I returned, Chen Yuting had used her skills to marry up several times. She owned a massive corporation, was protected by multiple 7th-rank grandmasters, and was a titan of the martial world. If it hadn't been for the global catastrophe that wiped out her empire, her status wouldn't have been much lower than mine, and I was a half-step war god back then. When it came to manipulating men, I didn't think there was a single woman in the country who could beat her. But that was then. This is now. Sparring, huh? Sure, I said. I turned to my second brother, whose face had darkened the moment he saw her. Brother, how do we calculate the sparring packages? My brother blinked, looking shocked. He knew how much I used to obsess over this girl. I never would have asked about the price before. Junior sparring is 500 an hour, he said, catching on and smiling. Intermediate is 1,000. Senior, with an actual ranked martial artist, is 1,500. That includes the high-end supplements, of course. I nodded and looked back at Chen Yuting. Go to the front desk and pay first. Chen Yuting froze. She pointed at herself. You're charging me money? Why wouldn't I? I looked at her two friends. And you too, don't touch that. The equipment is for members only. Membership is 3,000 a month, right? My brother let out a loud laugh. Since they're your classmates, I'll give them a discount. 2,500. The two girls pulled their hands back, their faces turning bright red. They scurried over to Chen Yuting's side, looking at me like I had grown a second head. Wang Xian, do you think this is funny? Chen Yuting's face transformed. Her voice was sharp with anger. I only came because you begged me to. I might have asked you to come, but I never said it was free, I replied calmly. Besides, I already have a sparring partner. Even if you pay, you'll have to wait your turn. Chen Yuting trembled with rage. She let out a cold, mocking laugh. You? Besides me, who would ever want a loser like you as a partner? Your innate vitality is only 0.1. Honestly, if it wasn't for your family's gym, I wouldn't even step foot in this dump. I didn't argue. I simply stepped aside, revealing the person standing behind me. Yi Mingyu walked out, now dressed in a simple white training uniform. The three girls went dead silent. Their eyes nearly popped out of their heads. Yi Mingyu walked over with a face like eternal ice. She didn't say a word, but the sheer aura she radiated made Chen Yuting take a step back instinctively. Her two guardians retreated even further. In our high school, if Yi Mingyu was the moon hanging high in the sky, Chen Yuting was just one of the many stars surrounding her. On her own, she looked bright, but next to the moon, she was dim and colorless. The moment Yi Mingyu appeared, every eye in the gym shifted away from Chen Yuting. Chen Yuting grit her teeth so hard I thought they might snap. She couldn't believe it. The Ice Queen, who never talked to anyone, was actually here with me? Tingjia. Maybe we should just go, one of the girls whispered, tugging at her sleeve. Chen Yuting snapped her arm back. She looked at me, playing what she thought was her trump card. Fine, Wang Xian. If that's how it is, don't bother bringing me breakfast anymore. I'll just let Li Zihang bring it for me from now on. I clapped my hands together, looking delighted. It's a deal. I almost laughed out loud. Looking back, I couldn't believe I had actually fought for the privilege of bringing her breakfast every morning. Was I really that much of a simp? You. Chen Yuting was speechless. She took several deep breaths to steady herself. Fine. I didn't really want to be here anyway. I already have a date later. And for the record, you're being a total poser. She grabbed her friends and turned to leave. Wait. I called out. A smug smirk touched Chen Yuting's lips. She didn't turn around, her voice getting louder and more arrogant. It's too late. Even if you beg me now. You forgot your jacket, I interrupted. This is a martial arts hall, not a dry cleaner. Her breath hitched. With a face as black as thunder, she stomped over to the rack, snatched her jacket, and practically sprinted out of the building. Once they were gone, my brother looked at me with pure amazement. He bumped my shoulder. Kid, you finally grew a backbone. He glanced at Yi Mingyu and lowered his voice. New target? I gotta warn you though, this one looks way harder to catch than the last one. I watched my second brother scan the room, his eyes landing on Yi Mingyu. He clearly didn't recognize her. Without her mask and tech support gear, her aura had shifted completely from a humble sparring partner to a cold, distant goddess. He gave me a knowing smirk, whispered a few words about her being a difficult catch, and then strolled away. I turned to Yimingyu. She was standing there, her expression frozen, though I could tell she was wound tight as a spring. "What are you waiting for?" I asked. She blinked, looking lost. "Oh." She started walking toward the sparring ring. "Where are you going?" I laughed. "You said you wanted a sparring partner." I shook my head. This girl was actually serious. "I was joking. You're exhausted." "Then I should pay the fee," she murmured. She actually started heading toward the front desk to hand over her money. I moved fast, grabbing her sleeve to stop her. "Do you even have the strength left to stand? Don't be stupid." Her cheeks flushed with embarrassment. She looked at the floor, realizing how drained she actually was. "It's getting late. I should go home." I nodded and followed her out of the gym. We walked in silence for a while until we were well away from the building. Yimingyu stopped and looked back at me, her voice small. "You don't need to walk me home." "Who said I was walking you home?" I grinned. "I'm going home too. We're just heading the same way." She looked like she wanted to argue, but didn't know how. She picked up her pace, and I matched it. We walked for 20 minutes until we reached the subway entrance. She spun around, glaring at me with a look that clearly said stop following me. I didn't look at her. Instead, I stared at the sky. The twilight was turning a bruised, sickly yellow. "It's here," I whispered. A massive shadow suddenly blotted out the sun. It swept over the heads of thousands of people, dragging a curtain of absolute darkness across the city. The sky went from dusk to midnight in a heartbeat. "What was that?" someone screamed. "A bird? An airplane?" "No way, it's too big." Pedestrians pulled out their phones, aiming them at the sky. But then, the world seemed to glitch. A couple in the middle of a fight froze, fingers pointed, mouths open, but no words came out. An office worker eating at a street stall stopped mid-chew, letting a piece of hot radish sit burning on his tongue. A man trying to scan a bike QR code stared at his screen, unable to press the button. Time hadn't stopped. Their eyes were wide, twitching with pure, unadulterated terror. This was the domain pressure of an S-class calamity beast. Anyone below the seventh realm was paralyzed by the sheer weight of its existence. Even from a distance, the aura of a god-tier predator could turn a normal human's blood to ice. A violent gale followed the shadow, screaming through the streets. Above us, the city's defense system flickered to life. A brilliant blue light spread across the sky, forming a massive, glowing honeycomb shield. The King Bee Falcon. It was a nightmare of the skies. Over 200 tons. 140 meters long. It moved at Mach 10. A single feather falling from its wing could slice a skyscraper in half. Its plumage acted as a natural electromagnetic jammer, killing all communications. I stood perfectly still, unaffected by the pressure. I watched the shadow disappear into the clouds. "The beginning of the end," I muttered. In this era, an S-class beast was a city breaker. Their hides could shrug off intercontinental missiles. Only a seventh realm grandmaster could hope to stand against one. The current defenses were a joke. Decades from now, in the star fields of the future, I would have slaughtered dozens of these things for breakfast. But here, now, it was a god. It moved too fast for radar to track. By the time you saw it, the disaster had already arrived. I remembered this day from my past life. A seventh realm grandmaster happened to be in the province and killed the falcon shortly after it appeared. If he hadn't been there, the city wouldn't have just lost a few streets and 1,000 people. It would have been wiped off the map. Boom! A massive explosion roared from the next street over. The sound broke the paralysis. People began to scream, scattering like panicked birds. "Get down!" I lunged forward, grabbing Yimingyu and dragging her behind a thick concrete pillar inside the subway entrance. The ground buckled. A violent tremor shook the earth, sending dust and debris raining down on us. We waited, huddled together, until the world stopped shaking. When we finally crawled out from the dust, the air was filled with the sound of collective gasping. Yimingyu covered her mouth, her eyes wide with horror. The blue defense shield above the city had been punctured. The bustling commercial street just 50 feet away was gone. It was a wasteland of twisted metal and pulverized concrete. The most terrifying part was the silence. The guardrail in the middle of the road was the border. One side was normal, the other was a graveyard. Several blood-red feathers, each the size of a surfboard, were embedded in the ruins. Just the shockwave from those feathers falling had leveled an entire block. The news would later say 1,000 people died. I knew better. 1,000 was just a number the government used when they didn't want to say 9,000. Suddenly, the emergency speakers on the buildings crackled to life. Attention! This is the Rome City Security Bureau. An S-class aerial beast has attacked. The city is now in a state of war. Residents of Tianfu Street and Hongxing Square proceed to the nearest air raid shelters immediately. Grandmaster Bai Hong Tian has engaged the enemy. Do not panic. Martial artists below the third realm are forbidden from entering the disaster zone. The crowd began to move, guided by the sirens. I looked at Yi Mingyu. She was shaken but unhurt. I felt a small surge of relief. Look, there's someone alive in the ruins, someone shouted. We all turned. High up on a crumbling third-floor balcony of a shattered mall, a small figure was curled into a ball. The balcony was a lonely island, surrounded by roaring flames and thick, black smoke. It was swaying, ready to collapse at any second. It's a child, a man with keen eyes yelled. The retreating line of people stopped. Everyone stared, whispering, but no one moved toward the rubble. Are there no third realm martial artists here? A woman cried out. Silence followed. Everyone looked at the ground. Finally, the woman turned to a burly man next to her. Brother Xiong, you're a martial artist. Can't you jump over that rail and save the kid? It would only take a second. She pointed toward the metal railing dividing the road. It's right there, she said. Just jump over. It's easy. The crowd's eyes shifted to the burly man. His face stiffened. He frowned, looking at the ruins. Save him? How? We're just regular citizens. We need to follow the broadcast instructions. Don't go in there and make a mess for the authorities. He pointed a trembling finger at the wreckage. That was an S-class beast. Even its fallen feathers carry a massive energy field. They radiate a special killing intent. If that energy enters your body, it erodes your flesh. You lose yourself. Without professional combat gear and spirit armor, you can't handle the mental pressure. He looked at the woman, his voice rising. You're just a housewife. You have no idea how dangerous it is. If one more feather falls, you're dead on the spot. The broadcast said it clearly. Anyone below the third realm is forbidden from helping. The woman lowered her voice, her eyes searching his. But, aren't you a third realm martial artist? The man's breath hitched. He looked away. My vitality is 989 points. It's not 1,000. I'm not officially third realm. In this world, vitality was everything. It was the yardstick of power. 10 points made you a first realm. 100 made you second. 1,000 made you third. But didn't you already pass the third realm assessment? The woman whispered, her eyes filled with a desperate hope. The man's face turned beet red. He snapped. If I die, what happens to you and the kids? Just keep moving. The woman flinched. She went silent. Your husband is right, someone in the crowd chimed in. We shouldn't get involved. Yeah, going in now just creates more trouble for the professionals. The broadcast said help will be here in 30 minutes. They're probably already on the way. The voices rose up, a chorus of people trying to comfort the couple, or perhaps just trying to quiet their own guilty consciences. But as they looked at the child on that swaying balcony, their voices grew smaller. Everyone knew the truth. A child wouldn't last 30 minutes. In that smoke, life fades in seconds. There were other martial artists in the crowd. That 1-meter-high railing was nothing to them. But the moment that S-class beast appeared, it had snatched away everyone's courage. The railing was low, but the wall of fear in their hearts was mountain high. Yi Mingyu gripped my sleeve tightly. Her teeth were clenched, her eyes fixed on the ruins. This was the street she took home every day. If she had been just a few minutes earlier. Suddenly, her grip felt nothing but air. I had stepped out of the line. I stood there, facing the wreckage. Her heart skipped a beat. She lunged forward, grabbing my arm with both hands this time. Wang Xian, what are you doing? What does it look like? I asked, looking ahead. Don't be reckless, she hissed, her voice trembling. This isn't something we can help with. I won't let you do something this stupid. This isn't like saving someone from drowning. Even the third realm experts are staying back. I looked at her and gave her a small, confident smile. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. She didn't let go. She couldn't. I didn't pull away. Instead, I spoke softly. Yi Mingyu. Who am I? She looked confused, her voice a soft murmur. You're Wang Xian, a student from Rong City 5th High. I shook my head. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I smoothed it out, showing her the drawing of the magnificent, powerful man. I'm the future war god, I said with a grin. Her eyes widened. She stared at the drawing, 1,000 thoughts swirling in her head. Her grip on my arm loosened instinctively. As the future protector of humanity, I can't just watch, I said. I handed her the drawing and started unzipping my jacket. I looked directly into her wavering eyes. If I see someone in need and do nothing because I'm afraid, then I've failed the person who drew this. How could I ever become a war god then? Yi Mingyu looked down, her cheeks flushing a faint red. Hold this, I said, pressing the paper into her hands. Why? Why are you giving it to me? She stammered, catching it. Keep it safe for me. Give it back when I return. I tossed my jacket to the ground and bolted. With one fluid motion, I planted a hand on the railing and vaulted over. I stepped out of the safe world and into the hellscape. I cleared the metal bar, and in doing so, I cleared the wall of fear that held everyone else back. Asterisk saving you, Yi Mingyu, was because I am Wang Xian. But saving that child? That's because I was once the first 8-realm half-step war god in history. Star refining technique, activate. Look, someone's going in. Who is that kid? Is he insane? Look at the uniform. He's just a high schooler. The moving line stopped again. All eyes were on me. Some people gripped the nearby poles, their knuckles white. Some looked away in shame. Others pulled out their phones to film. This is madness, someone muttered. A kid who hasn't even awakened his martial talent is just committing suicide. This is why we should ban those hot-blooded battle anime. It makes kids think they can save the world. He's just making it harder for the actual rescue team, another added. Not that it matters. He won't survive long enough to see them. Shame. 5th High is a good school. What are they teaching them these days? The negativity spread through the crowd like a virus. Shut up. The burly man from before roared, his voice echoing off the buildings. He glared at the critics. None of you are even half the man that kid is. What right do you have to talk? What right do you have? Someone snapped back. You're a 3rd realm martial artist, and you're standing right here with us. I am afraid, the man said, staring the speaker down. But at least I don't comfort my own cowardice by insulting someone who actually has guts. He looked around at the silent crowd. The first war god, Zhou Tianlong, once said a martial artist can lose everything, but they can never lose the courage to face the world. He's just going to die, someone whispered stubbornly. Die. The man sneered. If every martial artist felt that way during the beast invasions or the colonial wars, you wouldn't even have been born. There would be no long country left. The crowd went silent. No one dared to meet his eyes. None of you deserve to be called martial artists, the man said. I'm no better than you. None of the experts here are fit to lace that boy's shoes. He turned to the woman beside him. Shaoli, take care of our son. Brother Xiong? You. The man smiled, his voice softening. I'll tell you a secret. In the entryway, under the second tile of the shoe rack, there's a hidden compartment. There's a pair of old shoes in there. Look inside the soles. There's a stack of cash. Take it out. Otherwise, you'll never find it. He didn't wait for an answer. He began walking toward the railing. His pace wasn't fast, but it was steady. He wasn't running, but he wasn't stopping. One person stepped out. Then two. Soon, 12 figures were moving past the railings and into the disaster zone. As the burly man crossed the line, a faint, glowing aura flickered around his body. It was force outward release, the unmistakable mark of a 3rd realm martial artist. He took a sharp breath, sweat already beading on his forehead. The other martial artists following him felt it too. You don't realize how heavy the air is until you're standing in it. The pressure was staggering. It wasn't coming from a monster, but from a few stray feathers drifting in the dust in the distance. A pale red mist was starting to rise from the ground. That was the sign of overflowing, baleful energy. Any land invaded by high-level beasts needs years of recovery before humans can live there again, just to clear out this toxic aura. Every step felt like wading through lead. The man swallowed hard and nodded to the other 3rd realm warriors. Let's do what we can, he whispered. We probably can't save them, but at least we can bring their bodies back whole. The others nodded grimly. No ordinary person could survive this environment. That kid from earlier ran in fast, one of them muttered. I wonder where he dropped. I don't see him anywhere. The mist is getting thicker, another added. Our senses are failing. If only we had a divine artist with us. Their mental strength is far beyond ours. They could find the targets in an instant. They huddled together for support and began to inch forward. Meanwhile, I was flying. I ran through the ruins with my eyes closed, breathing in the thick, red mist. While the others were choking on it, I felt a surge of pure adrenaline. It felt like I was back on the alien battlefield. I can't even describe the feeling. It was nostalgic. It felt like coming home. On the alien battlefield, there is no natural energy. Only this thick, syrupy, baleful energy. That place is the main stage for the thousands of races in the universe. Down here, people call an S-class beast a nightmare. Up there, they're just children's toys. People call this stuff baleful energy like it's a curse, but they're wrong. Its real name is Spirit Baleful. It's one of the true high-level energies of the universe. On Earth, people fear it because it destroys ordinary life forms. Low and mid-level martial artists can't handle it. It's more stubborn, more violent, and harder to control than the world's natural energy. But I knew the truth. Back in my old life, I discovered that techniques powered by Spirit Baleful are several times stronger than normal. If you use it for body tempering, your physical growth doubles. That's why the beasts are so powerful. The only problem is that the energy leaking from high-level beasts carries their killing intent. It rots the mind. That's why Earth's martial artists stay away. But I'm not them. The will of a beast doesn't scare me. Even if the king-wing bird itself stood in front of me, I wouldn't blink. I thought I'd have to wait years to start absorbing Spirit Baleful again. I got lucky. Thanks to Yi Ming's massage and my own bone setting earlier, I had managed to force open my Yang meridian. Without an open meridian, you can't absorb energy. If you try, the Spirit Baleful just shreds your cells until you either die or explode. But with one meridian open, now I could play. Starry Sky Body Tempering Art, activate. I smirked and veered toward a third-floor balcony in the distance. I hadn't forgotten why I was here. I knew exactly where my target was the moment I entered the zone. I only slowed down because I sensed the person was a little special. I figured I'd use the walk to cultivate, so I'd have enough strength for the rescue. The Starry Sky Body Tempering Art was my life's work. I spent decades merging old martial arts with modern theories to create a technique that could survive the alien battlefield. At its peak, it turns your body into a celestial furnace that can swallow stars and moons. Back then, I finished the technique too late. My body was already failing. Now, the timing was perfect. The first step of the art is to flood the 12 main meridians and the 8 extraordinary vessels with cosmic energy. 20 meridians in total. When they link up, they form the God Pulse. Once you have the God Pulse, you have the strength to move mountains. You stop being limited by the planet's energy and start breathing in the power of the universe itself. With every step I took, the red mist surged into the soles of my feet. It flowed through my acupoints, Jinmin, Yangjiao, Jianjing, all the way up to the Benshin point on my forehead. Spirit Baleful is destructive. As it hit each point, it acted like a wrecking ball, tearing my existing meridians to pieces. But as I breathed, following the rhythm of my mantra, I used that very same energy to rebuild them. I was weaving a new, stronger meridian along the old path. The pain was beyond human limits. It was like being shredded and stitched back together every second. If opening a normal meridian is like flirting with death, the God Pulse is like dancing on the devil's desk. It's pure suicide. Only someone who invented the technique and lived through it before would dare to try this. Not bad, I muttered. The energy here was actually a bit weak, and the Yangwei meridian is relatively short. My eyes grew brighter. My steps felt lighter. My breathing technique had reached a level where I could cultivate while walking, sitting, or even sleeping. I didn't need fancy poses. Every movement was a workout. Still not enough energy, I complained, looking around. My eyes landed on several scattered feathers nearby. I grinned. These feathers from the king-wing bird were massive, blood-red, and shaped like jagged blades. Without the bird's blood to power them, they had shrunk, but they were still packed with energy. I stepped onto a feather. Immediately, a massive, ghostly phantom of the bird appeared, screeching in my face. It was the residual will of the beast trying to crush my mind. I laughed and flicked my finger, popping the phantom like a bubble. I ground the feather under my heel and forced my cultivation technique to its limit, vacuuming up every drop of spirit baleful inside. When the energy vanished, a spark of light flashed in my eyes. A powerful current surged through my limbs. The Yangwei God Pulse was complete. I clenched my fist, feeling the raw power vibrating through my knuckles. Based on my current strength, a full power punch from me would hit with over 1,000 pounds of force. My overall vitality was only at 0.5, but people often misunderstand what that means. Innate vitality is just your starting talent, the foundation. The higher it is, the easier it is to grow later. Postnatal vitality, however, is your actual combat power. Take Yimingyu, for example. Her innate vitality was 0.5, but her physical limit was only 500 pounds, and she could only actually exert about 400. She had a long way to go. A normal martial artist with a vitality of 1.0 can usually hit the 1,000-pound limit. But here I was, with one God Pulse opened and a vitality of only 0.5, already hitting that 1,000-pound mark. In simple terms, at the same vitality level, my power would always crush theirs. That's the beauty of the God Pulse. It uses cosmic energy, spirit baleful, to transform the body into something terrifying. It's pure, structural superiority. I looked down at the massive feathers scattered on the ground. It was time to recycle some waste. I picked up a giant, jagged feather and tossed it over my shoulder. I felt eyes on me and glanced back, but I didn't care enough to investigate. I turned and headed straight for the third-floor balcony of the nearby mall. A short distance away, hidden behind a crumbling wall, a large man clutched his chest. He was gasping for air, his face pale with shock. He watched me as if he'd seen a ghost. He couldn't believe I was alive. This was a disaster zone, a place overflowing with baleful energy. Even as a third-realm martial artist, he had to burn through his internal force just to create a protective barrier to survive here. He was at his limit, his energy almost drained. And then there was me. I had no force barrier. I was walking through the corruption with nothing but my bare skin, looking like I was taking a stroll in a park. He probably thought I had some secret talent, but even then, it didn't make sense. We were months away from the college entrance exams where talents usually awaken. He watched me step onto the king wing bird's feather. He knew how dangerous those were. It wasn't just the energy, it was the residual will of an S-rank beast. It could turn a third-realm warrior into a mindless puppet in seconds. But I didn't just stand there. I ground the feather under my heel. He told me later he could actually hear the phantom shriek of the beast, a sound so piercing it made his head spin and his heart fill with dread. I just kept grinding my heel, soaking up the energy like it was a massage. I was shattering everything he knew about martial arts. How could a 17-year-old kid shrug off the mental assault of an S-rank monster? "Hey, we can't stay. We have to move," one of his teammates whispered from behind him. The big man shuddered. He felt a sudden chill, as if a prehistoric predator had just glanced his way. He realized I had spotted him. Even through the thick red mist, I had sensed his presence. He couldn't understand it. His vitality was nearly 1,000, yet he could barely see me. How could a high school kid with weak vitality fluctuations sense him first? He felt the heavy weight of death in the air and decided not to push his luck. He turned and retreated, his mind racing with questions he couldn't answer. I ignored them and swung the massive feather like a giant fan. The gust of wind cleared a path through the roaring flames, making me look like a god walking through fire. I stepped into the mall. I heard a soft, sharp intake of breath from the third-floor balcony. I looked up and saw a little girl. She was curled into a corner, her bright eyes wide with terror and wonder. She wore a tattered princess dress and a sky-blue pendant around her neck. The jewelry was emitting a faint blue dome of light, protecting her like a tiny fairy trapped in a swamp. I leaped up, landing softly on the third floor. I knelt down and reached out a hand, giving her a small smile. "Hey there, little one," I said softly. "Want me to take you home?" She didn't move. She just stared. I remembered her later from the news. Or rather, I remembered the tragedy. Her diary entry from that day, December 1st, was famous. She had written about how her mom promised her dad would come home. She hadn't seen him in 5 years, not since her birthday when he stayed for exactly 3 minutes and 36 seconds. Her mom told her he was a hero, someone who saves people when the world falls apart. She had asked if he would save them if they were in danger. Her mom said yes. So, while the sky fell and the fire consumed the city, she waited. She waited a long time in that hellish silence. But her father never came. Instead, the flames parted, and I appeared. I looked at her and felt a pang of guilt. In my past life, too many people died in this disaster. In the rush of the moment, besides Yi Mingyu, she was the only other person I could save. It didn't feel like enough. The girl still hadn't reacted. I waved my hand in front of her face and sighed. She was probably catatonic from the shock. Anyone would be. The mall was a graveyard of twisted metal and remains. I was used to it, but for a child, this was the end of the world. I glanced at her necklace. It was a high-level defensive artifact, likely rated at over 100,000 energy units. That's a grade 5 piece of gear, incredibly rare in the modern martial era. Usually, you need a vitality score matching the gear's level just to activate it. Someone very powerful and very rich must have given it to her. Normally, you need a vitality score of at least 100,000 to wear grade 5 gear. That is the level of a tier 5 martial artist. But what she had was an unrestricted protector. In the gaming world, we would call it level S gear. It was beyond rare. Even a regular person with zero martial training could use it. It triggered automatically the moment an attack landed. Without it, there was no way she would have survived this long in such a hellscape. The necklace was reaching its limit. It was about to break. Spirit Malice is incredibly corrosive to modern high-tech martial gear. It eats through energy circuits like acid. It was a stroke of luck that she had only been hit by a few stray feathers of that dark energy. "Are you part of the rescue team?" the girl suddenly asked. Her voice was crisp and surprisingly clear. I smiled. She was still lucid. "No," I said quietly. "But I'm taking you away from here." I crouched down, signaling for her to climb onto my back. The little girl shook her head. She looked at me with wide, pleading eyes. "Big brother," she whispered. "Can you just hold me?"